Hey, welcome back to the Angry Teacher channel. We're going to be talking about vocabulary and how to teach it. Hang around. We're going to learn today. Now, research has shown that regardless of your course, regardless of whatever type of class you teach, students need vocabulary infusion in order for them to understand your context, to understand your class content. So, we're going to look over a couple of things just before we get into the video. So when students approach vocabulary, they think of about maybe 6 things, knowingly or not, and this is how it goes down. I have never seen this word before and I don't know anything about it. Or I've seen this word before and I still don't know anything about it. I think I have an idea of this word. Or I have an idea of the word and I can associate something kind of sort of with it. And you have those, oh, I know this word very well. I can explain it very well and I can use it precisely. Sure, I'm gonna need you to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell for the next Angry Teacher video release. Now, you have to think about who you're gonna have in front of you. Is it gonna be a younger set of kids or an older set of kids? And that kind of dictates how you're going to go about infusing and teaching vocabulary. There are implicit ways of doing it and explicit ways of doing it, and we're going to look at both. All right? Exposure, exposure, exposure. Hang on for the rest of the video. Today, I'm going to give you something that really ticks me off, man. Come on. Exposure, either written or verbal, that's important. And a technique that we need to think about, or a way to look at using vocabulary or infusing vocabulary, is isolation versus inclusion. Both are important and both get your kids to learn the vocabulary of your content. As a teacher, you've planned. So when we encounter these words in our readings, we will be able to pay attention to them. So indirect usage. There are a couple of things I'm going to talk about here for indirect usage. The first is looking the word up. While I'm reading, you don't know something, write it down, and then I give you some time to look the word up. Or even while I'm reading, or while you're reading, look the words up, and it gives you context about the rest of the passage. Again, because I've planned, as a teacher, when I'm reading out loud or thinking out loud, I will use the word that wait a minute, I've seen that word before, and then they refer to the list. Oh yeah, that word has been on my list. And so they get context about the word that I've manipulated them into thinking that, you know, it's just randomly used, but it's an actual part of my lesson. I'm thinking about the word and I'm reading and the word is there and they've seen it before and they've heard it used, and now they can have a point of reference for that word. Now, I have one of these every 2 to 3 weeks. It's a list of vocabulary words that may be anywhere from 18 to 20 words. So the kids change these out every 2 to 3 weeks. And we use that and we do different activities either implicitly or explicitly, but they're still using and learning vocabulary. I have the definitions, I have the parts of speech. All of this is on the paper, so they don't necessarily need a dictionary. They have everything they need right here on this sheet. Okay? By the end of the year, they end up with about 12 of them. That's how intense we use it, and it doesn't get too overwhelming because by that time, they'll know at least 20 words times 12. That's a lot of words. Okay. Like I just showed you, there are word lists and word walls. Especially elementary schools, we're big on word walls. Everybody loves a word wall, but if it's not interactive, does give them an idea of when they come in, they see the words. And make sure you keep these things up. Don't just put it up in the beginning because you're having the district walking in and looking at your room and how pretty it is in parent night, and parents are seeing how interactive the walls are. But let's make sure the kids use it. While you're teaching, point to a word. Let them see that, oh, wait a minute, that's there for a reason. Have them make the words for the word wall. Once they take ownership of it, then they'll appreciate it more and use it more. But every now and then, kind of look at the wall, that word there. Do you guys like randomly ask them questions, or when they're asking a question, can you use that word instead of the words that you're using? Make it interactive for them. I showed you in another video about my vocabulary cards. They get those and they practice and they practice. My kids, and like I've said, with that list that I've showed you, they actually have to write sentences. So that's isolating the words and they're using it in context. In most of my classes, when we have discussions, I implore the kids, or I make it a part of their grade, to use the words in discussion, because the practice of the word makes them take ownership of it. So while they're talking, I'm walking around and I'm listening for them and listening for the usage of the words. I don't care which word they use from my list, as long as they're using it in context. And the other students who are listening to the conversation will be able to say, "No, you didn't use that right, buddy," or "Hey, that's good, I can use that word too." There's some examples of indirect and explicit usage. Now it continues. Kids need to write. No matter what your content area is, they need to write. So when writing, have them use the words in their writing. Have them as a class opener, as homework, in the lesson, whatever it is, have them use the words. If you hear them explaining something and they're not using a definition, the word actually, they're using the definition, kind of remind them this is what that is, you know. Rote usage. Now, I've mentioned my giving the kids sentences before, and I know some teachers don't like that because it's so old school and it's just a waste of time, but it isn't. It's isolating the word and you're seeing it used in a sentence that you've created by yourself. And now, when I ask you to write in class, in a paragraph, you already know the usage of the word. You already are familiar with the word. And just like any athlete will tell you, practice helps. The more you practice, the more you write the word, the better. So that's one of the ways to isolate it with the sentences and use it included in a paragraph on a completely different topic even. And lastly, here's some things. They're ideas, not necessarily tips, but there's some ideas for the use of vocabulary or the acquirement of vocabulary. There are vocabulary puzzles we can do. We can have them do fill in the blanks. We can have them do the Freire model when they have to break down the word and draw a diagram of the word, a picture of the word, and definitions, sentences, parts of speech. You can have them make the word an action word by getting up and acting out the word. Whatever it is, as long as you include the vocabulary aspect of your class, because if they don't know what the word means, they won't understand the concepts, then they won't understand the content. All right? So those are my tips for teaching vocabulary. Welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. I am not necessarily going to go over any tips for this one, and I'm probably not going to go over talk about any of my kids. What I will do is tell you two things that tick me off. The first is when we go to these assemblies with all these different grade levels and different departments, and we have our kids with us. What ticks me off is in these large gatherings, you have teachers that don't carry their weight. For example, we'll all be in the auditorium waiting for an event to begin, or it's going on, and some teachers are huddled in a corner talking, some are sitting down reading on their phones, doing all these other things, or some drop their kids off as if it's daycare and leave. Now, the rest of us have to work with your kids, be silencing your kids, disciplining your kids while you're nowhere to be found, or you're not helping because the presenter is presenting and it's embarrassing the school, it's embarrassing our department, it's embarrassing our grade level, and you're doing something else. Come on now, that ain't right. As beginning teachers, we all hear the rumors, or we all hear the warnings, the cautionary tale of the Teacher's Lounge, avoiding going there because people will be negative and they'll be caustic to you, and it's going to poison your belief in the system or your belief in the school. Well, I have mixed feelings about it. Yes, you're going to hear, this is number 2 by the way, you're going to hear some negative stuff from people in the Teacher's Lounge because people are people. You're going to have people who are positive and people who are negative and people who are realistic. Some of us want new teachers to hear all the rosy stuff and not think about, whoa, there's some bad days that's gonna happen no matter how long you've been teaching. That's what I like about the Teacher's Lounge. You get to be a professional and an adult and make evaluative decisions about your profession. You get to hear the good, the bad, and the indifferent. You get to make the decisions about what goes on in your room and what do you want to do with your profession. So I don't think the Teacher's Lounge is a bad thing. It's a combination, and you have to determine how to weed out the facts, weed out the good, weed out the bad, and determine what do you want to do. Do I want to teach kids, or do I want to be running away from the profession? I don't know. You tell me. In the comments below, let me know, all right? Hey, thanks for coming to class today. And as usual, I'm gonna need you to go out there and be great. Hey, let's go out there and teach.